Hello. In this session, we will be continuing our discussion about the exemplary literary work of Naladdiyaar. As I mentioned before, Naladdiyaar comprised of 400 verses, beautiful analogies about living virtuously, about the moral strength, integrity and humility. We'll be continuing our discussion from the previous session, where we'll be talking once again about the three main divisions in Naladdiyaar. The first being about virtue or aram, the second talks about wealth, friendships and knowledge, and the last one is about love. And continuing our discussion, in this session we will be discussing about the inner peace which is mentioned here in Naladdiyaar. And the first section that we mentioned, right, it is all about aram or virtue, and how virtue is cultivated and how it is exemplary, and how it how it passes over, or is exemplary, and it is much more important than, or much more critical than, the fleeting wealth or the youth or even life in itself. And here they talk about the emotional and spiritual self mastery, and here they talk about patience in verse 71. So I would like to explain this word, and here it is saying that கோதை அருவி குளிர்வரை நன்னாட பேதையோடு யாதும் உரையற்க பேதை உரைக்கின் சிதைந்து உரைக்கும் ஒல்லும் வகையால் வழுக்கி கழிதலே நன்று. And here in this verse they talk about the associations that we find in life. So many times in life we'll come across many people from different walks of life. We have got people whom we associate from our school days, college days, in the different places that we work, our neighbors, our family by marriage, and then there are so many people whom we meet in our life. But how do we associate with them, and how do we maintain the relationships, sustain true relationships, or step back from toxic ones? And in Naladdiyaar, this particular verse talks about how do you step back, how it is important and critical to step back from something which is not good. And here they say that பேதை உரைக்கின் சிதைந்து உரைக்கும் உள்ளும் வகையால் வழுக்கி கழிதலே நன்று. When someone is not good, when someone is there is a negativity that you see in someone, then it is best to slip away from them and not associate with them any longer. And this is an analogy which is still relevant in today's context. It can be applied to anyone in any walk of life, in any age group, we can say. If we find someone who is not, now the term that we use is vibing, who is not in sync with our moral values, with what we are practicing now, with what you think is the right thing to do. If someone is not abiding by that, if someone is not practicing virtue, then what do we do? The best thing to do is, the ideal step that we can follow is to step away from such people, and that is what is mentioned here. And this first part of Naladdiyaar mentions about virtue, like I mentioned, about how it is important to maintain the inner peace, how the self mastery of spirituality, the self mastery of your virtuous life is very important, self leadership, we can say. And then it also talks about how it is important to step back from people, from associations who are not kind, who are not good, who are not virtuous. And it also talks about the truth, and it can be a harsh reality also. So here, in many analogies that we find in truth, there are a few analogies from Naladdiyaar which says that when a man is rich, then many relationships come to him like stars in the night sky, how many they are. They come, approach him, surround him, but they all escape, or they all move away, make a lot of distance from him when he is left with nothing. So again, it's a very harsh reality, and even now in many movies, many serials, many anecdotes, we can see this is happening. So when you have a lot of wealth, people come and they throng, they are surrounded by a lot of people, but how true are they? We'll never know unless and until you are down towards the last wealth. That is the impermanence of relationships that Naladdiyaar is telling. It's a harsh reality. And again, it tells about the inner discipline. So, the analogy that this one verse uses here is, right, this wild gourd which is quite bitter in taste. So, even if it is cooked in aromatic spices with buttermilk or ghee or milk, and then go through with all of these aromatic taste, the bitter taste will never go. Similarly, a person who is not disciplined, who is not virtuous, their character can never be improved. And this is the analogy that Naladdiyaar tells in a very harsh manner, that one's inner discipline, one's inner moral compass is very crucial, and if that is skewed, that is not right, there is a lack of discipline, then that person can never be upright. It's very difficult for them to be upright, just like how a wild gourd can never change its bitter taste, even though it's cooked in milk and ghee and all kind of aromatic spices. And that's the analogy that Naladdiyaar uses. And these kind of spiritual teachings are illustrated so in a very exemplary, explained in a vivid visual manner for us. So, I can visualize when it talks about the dewdrops, when Naladdiyaar talks about like this example about cooking the wild gourd and the milk and the spices and ghee and sugar, then I can visualize. So, all of these spiritual teachings that we see, the philosophical sayings in Naladdiyaar are visualized in a beautiful way here. And this again is an important thing where they talk about the charity that we do here. And when you do charity, it does not need an external validation. That is explained in Naladdiyaar so well. You do charity for the sake of charity, not for society to appreciate you. And in the future also, this is how relevant is that 1000 years from now, 1000 years backwards that we go back, right? All of these years, how relevant is that particular statement? We are doing charity not for external validation, but for the sake of charity, for the genuine intention to help others. And Naladdiyaar stresses again and again that we should refrain from begging, from seeking alms. You can be poor, it's okay to be in poverty, but don't seek alms. Instead, whatever little you have, you share with others. You be graceful, you be gracious, you be charitable. You need not have a lot of wealth, you not wait for wealth to be accumulated. For you to accumulate wealth to then start charity, but from what you have right now with the present wealth, you start charity very small, you share with what little you have. So, that kind of I cannot say virtuous living, it's more about concern for the community, consideration for your next door neighbor, consideration for the people around you. That is stressed here in Naladdiyaar. And there is one more words where they stop, when Naladdiyaar talks about the old deeds, life that you have, that you perform all the good deeds and the bad deeds. And it says in Jain philosophy, because Naladdiyaar is written by a group of Jain monks. So, the Jain philosophy keeps recurring again and again. So, in this philosophy there is the past life, and how you have the old deeds that you do, whether good or bad, they come to you in the present life. So, similarly here the analogy they are giving is very beautiful. It says that பல் ஆவுல் உய்ந்து விடினும் குழக்கன்று வல்லது ஆம் தாய் நாடி கோடலை தொல்லை பழவினையும் அன்ன தகை தேர்த்த செய்த கிழவனை நாடி கொழந்து. So, this is a very interesting analogy where it says that if we leave a calf amidst a group of cows, the calf can very precisely point out where its mother is. Similarly, just like how a calf will know where its mother is in spite of leaving it in a cow herd, in a group of cows, the good deeds that you have performed in your previous life or in your life will always find you, and you will be benefited from all the good deeds that you have done in life. And this is a very crucial Jain philosophy which we can which is obtained here, which we can see here. And with this we have come to the end of part 1. I will be continuing now in another 1 minute or so. And just to quickly paraphrase what this first part of Naladdiyaar tells, is about Aram, that is like the dharma, the importance of moral living, self-restraint, being humble, humility, practicing humility, righteousness, and the impermanence of life. The core message here is to lead a life of discipline and refraining from harmful desires and upholding the ethical conduct. How we can avoid evil and how there is karma, like how the calf approaches its mother or finds the mother amidst a group of cows. The karma is always follows you. It can be good or it can be bad, but we have to be ready to face its consequences. And wisdom, a truly educated person is always celebrated, and one who has the inner discipline, the focus, they can always achieve great things in life. So all of this is the simplicity, the detachment from material gains is all mentioned again and again in these first few 90 and odd verses of Naladdiyaar. Now moving on to the second part. The second part is all about wealth. Wealth in terms of material wealth, in terms of friendships, in terms of knowledge is explained in the second part of Naladdiyaar. And here the virtue of wisdom is celebrated, which means about learning, how we praise and appreciate the learned people, and how the association is critical and important for own well-being. So all of this is explained in the second part, the right association we can say. So this again is an analogy. கனைக்கடல் தன் சேர்ப்ப கற்று அறிந்தார் கேண்மை நுனியின் கரும்பு தின்றற்றே நுனி நீக்கி தூரின் தின்றன்ன தகைத்து அரோ பண்பு இலா ஈரம் இலாளர் தொடர்பு. So this is a very visually interesting analogy we can say. So if I am associating with learned people, the more and more I am associating with them, the more and more I am conversing with them, learning from them, being with them, it is as sweet as consuming a fresh tender sugar cane from the tip of it. So that juiciness, right, that sweetness, that nectar that I am experiencing is that is the relationship that I am experiencing from my association with learned people. Conversely, if I am spending time with people who are not learned, who are not virtuous, who are not disciplined, then it is like consuming a sugar cane from its hard root, from the root side of it. So we can imagine a sugar cane, the juicy part on one side and the hard root on the one side. So associating with learned people of wisdom, of virtue, is like the juicy side of the tender coconut, tender sugar cane, while associating with people who are on the other side of the spectrum is consuming the hard part of the sugar cane. And we can see how Naladdiyaar celebrates wisdom, celebrate the knowledge that one has, not just knowledge but also people with knowledge is celebrated in Naladdiyaar here. We can see that here. And then the greatness of men in terms of how educated they are, how well versed they are, how good or how strong their moral compass is. And this is again one more verse that we can see here. உரைப்பு அருங்காலத்தும் ஊற்று நீர் கேணி இறைத்து உணினும் ஊர் ஆற்றம் என்பர் கொடைக்கடனும் சாய அயக்கண்ணும் பெரியார் போல் மற்றையார் அயக்கண்ணும் அரிது. So this is like again an analogy, like every verse of Naladdiyaar, it says that how even though we have got drought, the rains are scant and there is a famine coming, how the spring water, the natural spring water will still yield water, fresh water from the people, and then it will benefit the people surrounding villages. Similarly, a learned person who is who's academically inclined, who's virtuous, a noble learned person, right, a person who's learned is noble, and the benefit of them will always permeate the people surrounding them. That is their nature, and that is the benefit of having such a person amongst the people. It is as beneficial as the spring water, which is giving permanent water for people around the villages, even though there is a drought or there is scarcity in the rain. That is how learned people or wisdom is celebrated in Naladdiyaar. and they also honor the self-respect. So here we have to summarize what Naladdiyaar tells about greatness, about virtue, and about learning, and about moral greatness or high birth that we say, right? It's all about true greatness is not inherited. So which is again a phrase which is beyond time itself. True greatness is not inherited, and it is cultivated through learning. So I can become great in spite of anything that is affecting my birth or affecting my surroundings or my environment. I can truly achieve greatness just by learning, just by my education, and by my learning, my character, and my self-respect. So noble birth may open doors, but wisdom and virtue determine how far we go. And this one statement, it permeates years of oppression, years of whatever has happened all of these years. And this one line, it permeates years of disillusionment that we can say around how the place of birth is more important, people say, but it's not. Naladdiyaar says that true greatness is not inherited, but it is cultivated through learning, through wisdom, and through education, self-care, self-respect, and character. And with one more aspect of Naladdiyaar, I will be winding up this session. It's all about the relationships that we maintain in life, and how it is vital or important to be associated with people who are good. So here it says that, and this analogy is very interesting. ஊர் அங்கன நீர் உறவு நீர் சேர்ந்த கால் பேரும் பிரிது ஆகி தீர்த்தமாம் ஓரும் குலமாற்றி இல்லாரும் குன்று போல நிற்பர் நலமாற்றி நல்லாரை சார்ந்து. So this says that when water from the town, the waste from the town, we can say that the waste water from the town, it's when once it's joined the river or the majestic sea, the great river, its name is changed, it becomes the river, right? Similarly, irrespective of a person not having the right character, not having the right discipline, or not having the right knowledge or the wisdom, we can say, in spite of a person lacking the right wisdom or the right knowledge, just by associating themselves with people of wisdom, with people of virtue, they become great. So here this analogy of Naladdiyaar states the association of being with the right people, of people of wisdom, of people of the right character, of learned people. And I think that is still relevant in today's, in today's culture or in today's world, where I have got an opportunity to meet a lot of people, to befriend a lot of people, but the greatness of that association is that only if I am being with the right kind of people, and that is mentioned in Naladdiyaar all these years ago. How even when a sewer water reaches the great river, it becomes pure, it's called the river itself. People who can associate themselves with learned people, with people of wisdom, people of character, with self-respect, then the good, I can say the learning is spread, the wisdom is spread, and we can learn from such associations. So the importance of associating with the right kind of people, of befriending the right kind of people, is underlined here in Naladdiyaar. And one more, they say that this is again very philosophical in nature, where Naladdiyaar tells about how we have to scrutinize in forming the right friendships. So I have to associate myself with the right kind of people, people of wisdom. And Naladdiyaar also mentions that I need to be very careful in forming friendships with the right kind of people. And here the analogy is very interesting. யானை அணையவர் நண்பு ஓரி இநாய் அணையார் அணையார் கேண்மை கெழியி கொள்ளல் வேண்டும் யானை அறிந்தும் பாகனையே கொல்லும் எரிந்த வேல் மெய்யதா வால் குழைக்கும் நாய். So this is a very powerful analogy. It states that I need to know with whom I can form lasting, sustainable friendships. just like an elephant is also groomed, domesticated, a dog is also domesticated, but an elephant, if it's angered, it can even kill its own mahout, unlike a dog which still wags its tail against the very person who has aimed an arrow at it. So, this tells about how I need to form the right real friendships, true friendships. And the example given here is again very visually, very strong visually, explaining. And it says about how I can differentiate between the type of true and false friends. So, with this I am ending up this session. The next session will be again continuing about how Naladdiyaar mentions about the good associations that we have to form, about the friendships and how we can discern from them and moving on from there. Thank you.